NASCAR's playoff committee is already discussing potential format changes. Gibbs Racing says the 19 team is innocent. And could this weekend be NASCAR's final trip to COTA? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. It's always great when you can collaborate on a bigger project. Some partnerships just make sense, like Whataburger and Dr. Pepper creating the Dr. Pepper Shake. Genius. Other collaborations don't make sense. Putting Will Smith in YouTube Rewind effectively killed the whole project. Focusing on NASCAR, one of the best partnerships in recent years, in my opinion, has been between Speedway Motorsports and Circuit of the Americas, SMI and COTA collaborating to bring NASCAR to one of the nation's great road course venues. It just makes sense, right? Austin, Texas is a fast-growing market, the next-gen car built for road course racing. COTA gets to add NASCAR to its slate of F1 and MotoGP. It just makes too much sense, right? Well, apparently, according to The Athletic, neither side has agreed to a deal beyond this season. Jordan Bianchi reports that while both sides would like to continue working together, as of now, there is no deal done for 2026. Okay, at least that sounds encouraging. I know I'm biased. I live in Texas. I used to live in Austin for several years. Circuit of the Americas was basically my home track. I love the facility. Think it's great. In my opinion, COTA has earned a permanent spot on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I know we haven't seen the short course layout in action. NASCAR is about to debut a partially brand new COTA configuration, but assuming it continues to race as well or better than it has the past few seasons, COTA should be here to stay. This partnership, this collaboration should continue. It just makes too much sense for all the reasons I've already listed. Plus, think about it. COTA has broken through the 3-race threshold. Bristol Dirt Race lasted 3 years, scrapped it. LA Coliseum, 3 years, gone. Chances are the Chicago Street Race will move on after year 3. Circuit of the Americas is entering year 5. They broke through the 3-year threshold 2 years ago. They've already survived longer than most new NASCAR projects. And look at the TV ratings. Last year, Circuit of the Americas was the second most viewed road course of the season, only behind the Chicago Street Race. Shoot, the Charlotte Roval was on network TV as well last year and earned almost 1 million fewer viewers. Austin, Texas is a big market. More importantly, it's a growing market, and Circuit of the Americas is a world-class venue. So this is my plea to both SMI and COTA. Get a deal done for 2026 and beyond. This partnership just makes too much sense. The premier motorsport series in the United States should race at Circuit of the Americas. That's how I feel about it. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox here. Just wanted to rant about that to open the show. Again, I'll admit I'm biased. Shoot, I have a Circuit of the Americas layout on the wall behind me. I'm biased, I understand, but I hope y'all hear my plea. That's all I can say. Moving on. I listened to the Hauler Talk podcast this week. That's NASCAR's new show featuring communication directors Mike Ford, Amanda Ellis, NBC reporter Nate Ryan. They've had their work cut out for them their first 3 weeks. In this week's episode, they talked about the NASCAR playoff committee that held their first meeting at Daytona a couple weeks ago. This is a new committee led by Ben Kennedy, Julia Landauer, Tim Clark, whose goal is to create NASCAR's next championship format. I'll link the full Hauler Talk episode down below, but in this episode, Mike Ford all but confirms that Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell are some of the current drivers on the committee. He also mentioned a former driver, now Hall of Famer, who pitched a return to the 36-race full season format. Some are speculating that could be Jeff Gordon, maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr. Ford also mentions that there are some current team owners that are on the committee, broadcast partners, representatives from the 3 OEMs. And according to Mike Ford, this committee is open to anything. He says there's no agenda. All they're asking is that everyone on the committee consider the following. 1, the new format needs to crown a deserving champion. And 2, it needs to keep fans engaged through the end of the season. That second bullet point is going to be tough, no matter what format they introduce. In the fall, you're going up against the NFL in their own Sunday afternoon time slot. The Super Bowl just broke its own viewership records. The NFL is king until further notice. But the first bullet point is the most important one. Any new championship format needs to crown a deserving champion. The biggest issue I have with the current format is the one-race winner-take-all championship finale. I know there have been many races building up to that moment, but one race is not a large enough sample size for fans to feel confident that the most deserving team is always getting crowned. I put that video out in November. My realistic new playoff format proposal keeps the playoffs at 10 races. That's simple. But instead of a one-race finale, I propose a one-race wildcard playoff opener, where the top 8 seeds are safe for that week, but seeds 9 through 16 battle for spots 9 through 12. From there, the round of 12 would be set, 3 races down to 8, 3 races down to 4, and then you'd have 3 races for the championship 4 to determine the champ. That's my proposal in a nutshell. It keeps the elimination rounds that TV loves and fans have become somewhat used to over the last 11 years, but it forces the championship 4 to bring their A game for 3 races instead of just 1. That's my proposal. I'm not on the playoff committee, but if anyone asks, I'd be willing to go into more detail or just watch my video from November. I'll put the link up here. As y'all know, I like the current format overall. It's not perfect by any means, but I get it. My number one complaint with the current format is the one race finale. That's just not a large enough sample size. Shoot, you could argue that 3 race rounds isn't a large enough sample size. I mean, you'd have a point. The Hauler Talk podcast mentions that someone in the meeting proposed a 7 race round and then a 3 race round. Maybe that is the better balance. I'm all ears. But that's the key word, balance. You can't force a Game 7 moment every single year. Fans, teams, competitors, they see right through that. It's about finding the right balance. Anyway, thought it was interesting that already February, the playoff committee is meeting, throwing ideas out there. Again, what did I open the show by talking about? Collaboration. Collaboration is usually a good thing. We'll wrap up with this. After the Daytona 500, the number 19 Cup Series team, driven by Chase Briscoe, was docked 100 driver and 100 owner points, 10 playoff points, fined $100,000, and the crew chief was suspended 4 races. Why? Because NASCAR alleges they illegally modified the spoiler mount. Joe Gibbs Racing is appealing the massive L2 penalty. That appeal is set for next week. But on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio this week, Joe Gibbs Racing team president Dave Alpern claimed they're innocent.
We screwed the spoiler on. It passed inspection, it raced legally, and it passed inspection afterwards. When they took it off, some of the screw holes were offset, again, because when you go to install it, they don't line up perfectly. We screwed something on, and it met the perfect template. Just some of the screw holes were offset because the screws didn't line up perfectly.
Alpern goes on to suggest that if you took the spoiler off other Cup Series cars, you would see the same thing. Says that it did not give the 19 any sort of performance advantage. Look, I don't know what to make of this. Last week, I went back with y'all and looked through every single L1, L2, L3 next-gen penalty for modifying single-source parts. And what I found interesting is that Joe Gibbs Racing has never been penalized for illegally modifying a single source part. Yes, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch's team got in trouble for putting tape on the nose at Pocono a few years ago. That was a DQ, not an L1 or L2 or L3 penalty. Hamlin did get busted for an engine seal violation last year, but that's a different category. They weren't modifying a single source part. This is the first time Joe Gibbs Racing has been busted for this kind of thing. So does that help their case? Was it an obvious mistake? Was it not the team's fault at all? Was it an issue with the part they were supplied? That's the argument that Joe Gibbs Racing will attempt to make in NASCAR court next week. Dave Alpern insists that Chase Briscoe was not given an unfair performance advantage. Maybe he's right. I do know that the spoiler is a very sensitive spot on the race car, and I must be honest, it's a little suspicious that Chase Briscoe won the pole in single car Daytona qualifying. The Toyotas are not usually trimmed out for single car runs. I mean, at Atlanta this past weekend, the best qualifying Gibbs car qualified 25th. So like, it's a little suspicious that the 19 won the pole and then got busted for something wonky with the spoiler of all things. It's suspicious. It's very suspicious. Maybe it's all a coincidence. Dave Alpern is exactly right, and the appeal panel will side with the team. But boy, that would be a heck of a coincidence. Like we reviewed last week, nobody has ever won an appeal over an illegally modified next-gen part. Hendrick Motorsports almost did. They got much of the penalty reduced, but they didn't actually win the appeal over the whole louver debacle a couple of years back. So history, I'd say, is not on Joe Gibbs Racing's side, but time will tell. We'll find out next week if Joe Gibbs Racing gets this massive season-altering L2 penalty reversed or not. Regardless, like I've been saying, the goal for Chase Briscoe doesn't really change. Yes, it's harder to make the playoffs now, and if you make the playoffs, you got a 10-point playoff point deficit you got to deal with, but all along, the goal for Briscoe, the goal for crew chief Jane Small, was to win a race. The 19 went winless last year. The goal this year is to get that Bass Pro Shops Camry back in victory lane. Regardless of the result of this appeal, that goal does not change. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. COTA, playoffs, Chase Briscoe. Let me know what you're thinking. Leave a like on this video, subscribe for more. I'm driving down to COTA tomorrow, Friday, so I'll be there all weekend. Should be some good times, hopefully some good content coming your way. It's thanks to folks on Patreon that I'm able to go cover as many races in person as I am. Wouldn't be able to do that without your very generous support. I will see you in Austin, folks. If you see me at the track, come say hi. I'll be around all weekend. Should be fun. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I'll see you again soon.